Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Thursday, February the 2nd. Zach Ewing here alongside Spencer the Guru, Urquhart, and Jim Derry, coming to you from across South Louisiana today. We're, of course, just about 10 days away from the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles, and we will talk a little bit about that, where the betting line is going, what the odds are doing, and all of that. But for the most part, we're going to save the Super Bowl for next week, guys, and really hone in today on diagnosing what the hell is wrong with the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't think I can put it more delicately than that. And some of the things are obvious. Look, injuries. Some of the things are not as obvious. And to help us, we're going to have Christian Clark, Pelicans beat writer from NOLA.com, coming on here in about 5 minutes. Pelicans play the Mavs tonight. Christian is in Dallas for that. And look, they're staring their 10th straight loss right in the face.
And we're going to talk about our newest segment here where we do a poll question on Tuesday or Wednesday. We haven't figured out which one. We did it Tuesday this week because we had breaking news. But a poll question, which was the obvious one about Sean Payton. Did the Saints get enough for Sean Payton? We're going to show the results of the poll, and we're going to give our own takes on that. And I got to be honest. I know we're going to get to that towards the end of the show, but I was surprised by the results of the poll, and I think it's more people just saying, woo, we got a first-round draft pick, not to give any spoiler alerts away.
I think we might have a return of Derry Downer later in the show. I think that might be what's going on here.
Very possible.
Just so y'all know, we are sponsored by Caesars Sportsbook. As always, you can go to lsuposter.com and get a free 3-poster set of front pages from championships in the past for LSU. Go to lsuposter.com. All you have to do is fill out the form there, register for Caesars, and make at least a $10 bet. So you bet $10 on the Super Bowl or really on anything, and tell us which of those free posters you want, and we will send them to your house. It's going to get interesting. It is going to get interesting, and to that end, we're going to bring on. It's always interesting. To that end, real quick, we are going to bring on Christian Clark, our Pelicans beat writer for the Times-Picayune and The Advocate. We want to talk some Pelicans. We want to figure out what's wrong with this team. And Christian, welcome aboard. We also want to talk about how Mizzou beat LSU's butt last night. I know it's very important to get that out front.
Give me a break.
I love to hear that. I love to hear you leading with that.
Yeah. The Red Tigers won the game.
LSU backdoor covered, though.
They did. Well, it depends on when you got the number, but that was pretty amazing. We can talk about that later. But Christian, coming to us from the Dallas area where you're from, and the Pelicans play the Mavericks tonight, staring 10 straight losses in the face. And I don't think any of us really thought we would be here a couple of months ago.
Oh, I actually didn't make the trip. I was supposed to, but my flight got canceled. So that speaks to some of the transportation issues. The Pelicans are going to try to stop the skid tonight. They were supposed to fly to Denver yesterday to go to Dallas. They couldn't do that because it was icy in Dallas. So they flew in today. They got to their hotel too, and they're going to play this game tonight. And Luka, it has not gone well for them playing against Mr. Doncic these past couple of years. I think it's going to be really hard for them to win this game.
Like my money line pick on our best bets even more now, Christian. Thank you for that. Not that I'm rooting against the Pelicans. I'm certainly not. But I mean, I don't see how anyone would take the Pelicans tonight.
Yeah, Mavericks are 5-point favorites, which honestly seems kind of low. But I mean, I think one thing, Christian, during this losing streak, they're still playing hard. Like if you watch the games, it's hard to be. It's not an effort issue. The defense has been there, but obviously the number one thing is the injuries. Brandon Ingram was out much longer than anyone anticipated, and now Zion Williamson is out, even as Ingram comes back. But the other part is the offense it's really dried up, and the injuries are part of that, of course, but maybe not all.
Yeah, I mean the official games missed counter for Brandon Ingram with the left toe contusion. That was the injury the team described it as. A left toe contusion was 29 games. He was out for 2 months. So I think longer than many anticipated, but he's back now. This is going to be his 4th game back tonight after that layoff. And you're right. During the 9-game losing streak, they've been dead last in offensive efficiency in the NBA. And it hasn't been by a little. It's been by a lot. Last 9 games scoring about 105 points per 100 possessions. The next closest team is at like 109. So it's like a difference of 4 points per 100 possessions in that stretch. I mean, they cannot score the ball right now. I mean, you're right that Star's not playing is a big part of that, but I mean, there is still some talent here, even without those guys. And these guys just look exhausted. They look beaten down. I mean, it's been absolutely brutal. I mean, since I started covering this team, this is my 4th year. I've covered losing streaks of 13, 9, and 9. So the lows can be really low with this team.
Yeah, speaking of Brandon Ingram, Christian, do you think that his current shooting woes, do you think that's just him, knocking off the rust and now he'll bounce back, or is this something that could be a long-term concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think the feeling with the team, within the team right now, is it's just has taken him a couple of games to get his rhythm back after missing 2 months. I mean, I think the team feels like, the injury that it had dealt with was more of a minor one than a major one. And while there might be a little bit of soreness, it's nothing too concerning. So I don't think they're really worried. I mean, just to me personally, I thought he didn't have a great game against Denver, but I thought he was moving around okay. Like the mobility looked better than it did in the first 2.
Did we ever get any clarity on why? I mean, I think that's the question, is why did that injury keep him out so long? And people say, oh, it's a bruised toe. And you've seen turf toe injuries, which is a different thing, keep people out for weeks on end. But was it just a pain tolerance thing? Was there a mobility issue? I mean, or has that all been kept pretty close to the vest?
I mean, look, from my understanding, it was Brandon's choice for a while on when to return. I mean, I think if he had wanted to be back on the court 2 weeks earlier than he did, he would have. I mean, I think the team felt like, I mean, look, we've done medical imaging. There's not a toe sprain here, which is something that Desmond Bane dealt with. From Brandon's perspective, he said that he just continues to feel a little pain, a little soreness, and he didn't have 100% confidence in pushing off. And I guess my kind of personal read in the situation, talking to a bunch of people, it seems like Brandon is hesitant to play unless he's pretty close to 100%. I can understand that to some degree. But at the same time, it was 2 months and it wasn't even a toe sprain. So I think it's going to be something he just manages throughout the rest of the season. But I think something that the team feels like he can play through.
Christian, when it comes to Zion, obviously we knew when he first got hurt, the initial time frame was that they would reevaluate in 3 weeks, which meant we knew that he wasn't going to play in 3 weeks. Now we're in the 2 week period. What is your sense? I mean, obviously we don't know. I mean, anything is a guess, but do you sense that he comes back sooner rather than later? And how soon after the 2 weeks do you think? I mean, are we talking about like right after the All-Star break, do you think, or do you think this is something that could linger into March?
I actually think there is a little bit of cautious optimism that he could come back right before the All-Star break. I think they play these games in Oklahoma City and against the Lakers right before the All-Star break in Salt Lake City. And I think possibly you could see him back then. It's still a little early, too early to tell, but he has started doing a little bit of sprint work while they're on this road trip. I think progressing in the right direction. It has not been a situation as in years past where, Zion gets injured and he's distant from the team. Like, been very connected with the team. By all accounts, the rehab has gone pretty well. And I think Zion wants to play in the All-Star game. I think that's another factor here. Like, he wants to be on that stage and like get to play with all those guys. I mean, he was an All-Star a couple of years ago, but not really, because it was in Atlanta and there's no fans. Like, that was not really an All-Star game. So I think he wants to be part of that game.
One last question I have for you is, you're an NBA beat reporter. Have you seen it just so happened that he gets hurt right before the Pels go on this brutal stretch of schedule. I mean, so it's bad luck with it. Have you seen a stretch of schedule to me that has been just, I mean, I can go through and look through them, but I don't know that I've seen one like this where you're talking about a month straight of just playing contenders in the NBA night after night after night. And it's just, again, bad luck that it's coincided with Zion's injury and Brandon Ingram as well. But I mean, I don't know that I've seen one like this for this long.
I mean, I think you're right. Like, a lot of this just is the schedule being really hard and having to go through this, without your top two guys mostly. I'd have to look it up again, but I think they have 5th, 6th easiest schedule post All-Star break. I know it's a fairly light schedule after they get through the All-Star break. But it's been really brutal, and it feels especially brutal because, like, a lot of this season, they were winning the games they were supposed to. Like, they beat Detroit. That was their last one, January 13th. But lately, they haven't been doing that. They weren't able to beat the Magic on the road. They weren't able to beat Washington at home when Brandon Ingram got back. Like, those are the ones that really, really hurt when you can't even when it does lighten up, every once in a while, and you can't even get those anymore.
Yeah, it was keeping them afloat even when Ingram and Zion were both out, just because they beat Detroit, they beat Washington on that road trip, and it was like, okay, you just play 500 during this stretch or close to it, and you're fine. And then the bottom fell out. So let's do a little prognosis, Christian, about going forward, because I showed the schedule. It does get a little bit lighter after tonight's game. They're back home for 4 in a row. Not that none of those are bad teams, but none of them are right at the top of their conference either. Then OKC in the one game on here. The Lakers is the last game before the All-Star break. That would be after that Thunder game. Is it as simple as, hey, let's get Zion back, let's get healthy, and this team can start rolling again? Do you foresee a trade? Is it just a matter of hoping the shooting comes around? If you could play doctor for a minute, what's your diagnosis for what the Pels need?
I mean, honestly, I think they can be like a decent team with just Brandon and CJ and the role players. I think they showed that a little earlier this season. I mean, collectively, they just need to play a little bit better, and Brandon needs to look like Brandon again. But as far as the trade deadline, I think they are going to make a move. I mean, I would be surprised if they're not. I mean, I think everyone in the NBA knows that the Pelicans want to get off of the Devontae Graham, Jackson Hayes contracts. They've got all their own first-round picks. They've got an incoming first from the Lakers and 24 that can be kicked at 25. They got a 27 from Milwaukee Bucks and a bunch of young players on really good contracts. So they've just got a lot of ways to make moves if they want to make moves. So I would be surprised if they don't do something between now and next week.
And speaking of young players, Chris, I know Dyson Daniels is kind of banged up with the ankle injury. What's his timetable? And also Kyra Lewis, do you think he could make an impact down the stretch?
Yeah, Dyson is an interesting one. I haven't heard anything on that in a couple of days. I mean, he was in a boot at first. I think it was supposed to be pretty severe. I mean, the initial timetable I heard was 2 weeks. I think we're like a week into it or so. So, hopefully before the All-Star break on him. And Kyra's kind of been interesting too, because he had a good game in Milwaukee. Devontae Graham has not played well all year. And I think some people are like, well, could he get those Devontae Graham minutes? He did not the last game. I think Kyra's a good young player. I think he'll be something in the NBA. I don't know if it'll be here or somewhere else, but I think he's pretty good. I wouldn't mind seeing him get some opportunity.
Look at the Pelicans futures odds, and I just to put things in perspective, I think we had a conversation with you on the show right around a year ago, right around the trade deadline last year. Can't remember if it was just before or after the Pelicans acquired CJ McCollum, and we all kind of agreed that success for last year's team was just to get in the play-in tournament and then see what happened. And they did that, and they got through the play-in tournament and then won a couple of games against the number 1 seed Suns. So in just a year, things have changed to the point where now they're sitting, I think, in the 10th spot as of right now, or tied for 9th in the Western Conference, and everyone's real disappointed. But as we look at these futures odds, Christian, like there's still some optimism in the betting market. 7-1 to win the Western Conference, only 18 to. I mean, like I think if you look at these NBA odds, they have the 8th or 9th best odds to win the NBA title. I don't know that I would make a bet at 18-1, but the point I'm trying to make is that when full strength, this is still a team that maybe could get in the playoffs and do some damage. I mean, we've seen what they're capable of.
Yeah, look, I mean, like on December 31st, they were half a game out of first place in the Western Conference. Half a game behind the Denver Nuggets. I think they're 9.5 games behind them then. So, I mean, this was just a really brutal month for them. I don't know that I would like bet on them to make the finals or anything like that, but I think they're definitely dangerous as long as they're healthy. I mean, I think they got good depth, and Zion Williamson, I think he's just showed this year, like he's as good as ever coming off that foot injury. And I think even better, like he can be like an apex predator in the playoffs. Like that dude, when he's right, is just an incredible player. Like I wouldn't want to have to deal with him in the playoffs.
This is their November of 2021. It just happened to be in January of 2023.
Dude, 13-game losing streak my first year, 9-game losing streak last year, 9 and counting this year. It's the only season you didn't have one of those was the Stan Van Gundy season, which was unquestionably the worst one of them all.
Well, that was a little different. You didn't expect them to come out of that funk. This one, I think we all would agree that we would be surprised if the Pelicans, when they come out of this, whenever it is, I think they'd be primed to go on a little bit of a roll. I mean, we saw what Willie did with them last year, and I wouldn't expect anything less the last 2 months of the year this year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine. I mean, I think post All-Star break, like they just need everybody to play together. I mean, Brandon and Zion have played 12 games together since Willie Green became the head coach. You know, the starting lineup that they rolled out opening night in Brooklyn, I think, has played 10 games together this year. So they just need those reps. And I think, you know, like getting those 20 games after the All-Star break is going to be invaluable for them.
Agreed.
It's very telling. Their odds are better to win the West than they are to win the division because the Grizzlies have opened up such a lead. But again, if they get into the playoffs, maybe a dangerous team. Before we let you go, Christian, just a kind of a look at the NBA in general. Obviously, the Celtics have been the runaway leaders all year long as far as the best record. Team you used to cover, the Denver Nuggets. I feel like they are a very dangerous team. They're at 7-1, first place in the West right now, and we're really seeing what they can do when healthy. What else have you noticed from the league that sticks out to you?
Yeah, look, my preseason finals pick was Denver versus Milwaukee, and I feel like I don't think I'm going to waver from that. I still like Denver in there. Golden State against Denver would worry me a little bit. I think Golden State's got a pretty good chance to get up to 3 now because, you know, behind Denver and Memphis, like the West has been so mediocre. But I like Denver coming out of the West, and I like Milwaukee out of the East. I just think, you know, Jokic has the best roster around him that we've seen so far. Like they've put in some pretty defensive-minded guys who can shoot the ball around him. You know, Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, KCP. So I just like their team a lot.
All right, he's Christian Clark, Pelicans beat writer for the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. You can follow him on Twitter. You see it there underneath his screen there, at @cclark_13. Give him a follow, read all of his great stuff on the Pelicans. Christian, appreciate you joining us, and good luck breaking this losing streak, man. I guess you're the cooler if it's been 9 in a row, 3 of your 4 years.
I think I am. Hey, thank God it's better days for Mizzou basketball. I was there when Kim Anderson didn't even recruit OG Anunoby, who was in Jefferson City. So
you are the cooler. You were see, that's what I'm talking about. All right,
They were great when you went to Mizzou.
They were pretty good. Ricky Paulding was there, and Linus Kleza. So there you go. They were better than they were during the Kim Anderson years. Christian Clark, thanks, man.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Christian.
Thanks.
Good stuff from Christian Clark talking to us about Pelicans and really what's going forward. I don't know, like I do feel it's interesting he brought up the losing streaks from previous seasons because this one, in a way, is more frustrating because of how much they've stood to lose. But in a way, it's also a little more like, hey, it's going to be okay because, you know, if and when they get fully healthy, we've seen what this team is capable of doing.
It feels worse because of how well we think they can do. But when you logically look at it and put it together and realize who they've played and the fact, like we talked about with the brutal schedule, I mean, it's not – you lose a few games in a row and it sorts the snowball. And I think that's where we are right now. And I really think that once they break this funk, that it's going to be a different team. And they just need to get some confidence. We don't know when that's going to be. It could be tonight. Daily Best Bets doesn't think so. But it could be tonight. And whenever it is, I think it's going to be a different team. And I do think that after the All-Star break, or maybe even a little before the All-Star break, you talk about this stretch that's coming up. They're coming home. They're not going to lose those 4 games in a row. I'd be very surprised if they lost those 4 games in a row. And, you know, you got to start somewhere. And so start it. If you can't start it tonight, start it at home.
Yeah, I don't know that the losing streak ends tonight. And Saturday's tricky because you've got the emotion there of LeBron James most likely breaking the all-time scoring record in that game. I think the Lakers play once before that, and he needs like 50 points or something. So unless he goes crazy in their next game, it's going to be Saturday's game at the Smoothie King Center where LeBron breaks that record. Does that give the Lakers an extra advantage? I don't know. But there's sort of some emotion there. But beyond that, I don't think you get concerned until, like truly concerned, until this losing streak goes beyond that game into Sacramento, Atlanta, Cleveland, Spencer.
Yeah, I mean, they need to get that Lakers game. It's hard to say anything at this point. It's a must win, but it's like, man, Sacramento is a good team. So you really need to win that one because that Lakers game, because if not, Sacramento, they're the 3 seed in the West right now. They're the real deal. And Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox. So the Pels definitely need to get some momentum going here. Hopefully tonight, at Dallas. I know Luka's a stud, but outside of Luka, they don't have a whole lot else. So I think it could start tonight. I'm gonna be optimistic and say it starts tonight.
Another thing with his schedule, I'm getting sick of these back-to-backs. I mean, do they really need to schedule them like that? I mean, there's so many back-to-backs.
They try to make it so that every team has the same number or very close to the same numbers. But you're right, Jim, and they had a lot in the last month. That's been another part of this.
I mean, it's insane. The worst one was when they were home one night and had to go play. That was recently. I don't remember who it was, but I know they were home. And then
they had to go play Milwaukee the next
day
night
on the road
at Milwaukee.
I mean,
the other one I'll say, and I understand that somebody's got to be in the Western Conference. There's just more NBA cities east of the Mississippi than there are west of the Mississippi, and logically the Pelicans make sense because they're close to Texas, and the Texas teams are in the West. This game, Cleveland at New Orleans, an Eastern time zone team against a Central time zone team at 9 p.m. Central on a weeknight. That's a Friday night. Still.
How many times do I have to tell you TV rules the world?
Yeah, it's got to be because of TV.
I'm sure it is, but you got to get out of here. It's not even it's not even a marquee game, really. It's like you're making people show up at 9 p.m.
That's a pretty big game. Cleveland's good. Yeah, I mean, Donovan
no,
Mitchell,
I'm not saying they're not.
Garland,
what I'm saying is TV is not going to look at that and have dollar signs flashing in their eyes. They're just not. It's Cleveland and New Orleans.
The Super Bowl in the afternoon.
Technically, they still do, I guess. 5:30 in the afternoon.
It's not afternoon and this time of year.
I mean, I'll tell you what, it pushes my kids' bedtime. Like, my kids go to bed at 9 o'clock, and they're going to have to stay up late to watch the Super Bowl, which is not how it should be.
Oh, yeah, for sure it is.
I mean,
gotta make exceptions sometimes.
If the game started at 10 and my daughters wanted to watch the Super Bowl, I'd be like, "Woo, stay up all night."
Well,
they don't care.
What would your wife say about that, though?
She actually wouldn't care for that one night, but they don't care about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, speaking of the Super Bowl, Eagles, I think when we talked on Monday, they were 2-point favorites. It's now 1.5. We've started to see that move. I really think the movement's going to come next week when we get some injury reports. Either the Chiefs are going to look healthier than we think, or it's going to be pretty bad, and that will cause the next movement, guys.
I would be shocked, and I mean shocked, if this doesn't either stay the same or move towards Kansas City, unless something we just don't know is going to come out and happen, which I doubt. Even if you're talking about little baby injuries, and you could have multiple injuries. It's not going to move a line unless it's Mahomes or potentially Travis Kelce. And we've talked about his injured back, which he's always got an injured back. So I don't think this line is going any more towards Philly. If you like Kansas City, bet it now. It's not going back towards Philly, I don't think, anymore. I think there's some twos, there's some rogue twos out there. They're harder to find now, because I've actually seen more ones than twos. But I think by the time this game gets kicked off, I think at best it's going to be pick 'em. I really think Kansas City may be a slight favorite when this game starts, because I think money's going to come in on Kansas City.
Interesting. Yeah, though, I saw Mecole Hardman was ruled out. Not that he's going to move a line, but it just, you got to keep an eye on like Juju, Kadarius Toney. They do have a lot of injuries there in KC, but I'm with you, Jim. I would bet KC as of now, unless something crazy happens with Mahomes or Kelce. To me, there's more value there with the Eagles because, like we talked about on Monday, the experience factor. I'd rather take the experience, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, that experienced duo, as opposed to Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, even though I do have to admit the Eagles' depth and roster is a tad better, but that coach QB combo, that's a lot of times that's the difference.
Well, that's the only thing I'm not going to say who you should bet on or who you shouldn't bet on or give my analysis or anything yet. I'm going to do that next week. But I will say this. If you like Philadelphia and you don't think you're going to change your mind, wait. I think you'll get a better value next week on Philadelphia. If you like Kansas City, and you like Kansas City and you're certain you like Kansas City, bet it now. It's not going to change. Spoiler alert, I've already bet on Kansas City. I did it 2 days ago when it was 1.5.
Our final picks will be coming up next week. We'll have a show on Monday at 4:00. And our good friend Devin Jackson, who works in Philadelphia now, is going to join us to talk some Eagles for that show. Tuesday, Spencer and I will have a player prop-based fantasy roundup, and then next Thursday, our final picks right here on Bayou Bets at 4 o'clock. The thing I'll say with the injuries, I mean, Mahomes is obviously the big one, and it sure looks like he's going to be. I mean, he played this last week, so why would he not play with 2 more weeks off unless there's a setback? Spencer mentioned Mecole Hardman, and Mecole Hardman's not going to move a line by himself. Neither is Kadarius Toney, neither is Juju Smith-Schuster. If all 3 of them were to get ruled out, and then you're talking about really going down the depth chart to find pass catchers, then I think you could see it flip back. It wouldn't get to the 3, but you could see it back in that 2.5 range. I don't think that's going to happen. The other one, L'Jarius Sneed, their top cornerback. Again, these guys aren't going to move lines all by themselves, but if it's a pack of like, hey, Kansas City's got 5 starters questionable or something, you could start to see that movement come back.
I think it may change your analysis, but I really don't think the Sharps are going to let it go back, because I think they're just kind of lying in the weeds. They soaked up the Eagles plus 2.5 right off the bat, where Circa threw it out there, and they love a lot of those guys bet Circa because they have higher limits, and they going to play middles. So same thing. If Kansas City goes up to, if Kansas City went to plus 2 again, so it's just weird. I think when it comes down to it, I think you would have to have, like you said, I think 4 or 5. Not just questionable. I think it would have to look like 4 or 5 of those guys aren't going to play, and that's not going to happen. I mean, and I don't know that it matters for Mahomes. I just don't think it does. But they would all have to be hurt, all have to be likely out. It's just not going to happen for the Super Bowl.
Jerry's here, by the way. Good, we missed this, but good afternoon, Jerry, and then Nick Saban. Guessing that's not your real name. This has got to be about the Pelicans. The team is trash like the mayor.
Well, he didn't spell it right, so I'm assuming it's Sabine.
I will say this. The Pelicans have had points in this season where they did perform at a high level that might make them different than the mayor. I don't know. But we won't get into all of that. What we will get into is our poll question for the week. About a little more than 1,000 of you voted. Did the Saints get enough in the Sean Payton trade? And if you combine, those top 2 are sort of the yes answers, and the bottom 2 are sort of the no answers. If you combine the top 2, we get almost 60% say yes, and a little over 40% say no. With the caveat that in both the yes answer and the no answer, the more sort of I'm not so sure response got a higher count. The I guess so and the no, but I don't hate it. And that's kind of where I'm at, is like, it's number one, it's hard. And I know, Jim, you have a stronger opinion about this, but it's hard without knowing exactly what they were offered, right, from other teams and what they thought they could get. John Gruden got, the Raiders got 2 first-round picks for John Gruden. This is 20 years ago. That wasn't going to happen. But other than that, like, they got a first-round pick. They get another second-round pick next year. Is it that bad, Jim?
It's awful. It's Mickey Loomis doing Sean Payton a solid. And it's bothersome. It's I've said this multiple times. It's the only card that the Saints held. They're in cap hell. Getting basically a bottom first round / early second round pick, which is what they got. They got the 29th pick in the draft, which to me is, it's no different than getting the 38th pick of the draft. So if you would have got a second round pick from somebody else, you can do this all you want. It's no different. Because you look at the players.
It's 9 spots different to be.
No, you know what it is? It costs you more money. That's what it costs. It's a terrible deal. You know why Saints fans like it? Oh, we get to watch the draft and they have a first-round draft pick. Well, goody two-shoes. They could have waited till next year and got a much better deal from a team like the Chargers or the Cowboys that are going to be begging for a new coach next year at the same time. It's an awful deal. It's called either impatient or doing my friend a favor. It's one of those two. And now the Saints are going to be stuck with, most likely, an Andy Dalton type guy, because they're not going to be able to go out and sign a Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo, because they don't have the money, unless they can find a way to unload Michael Thomas to some really bad SAP GM. It's just a terrible deal all the way around. We'll talk about it more on Datitude, and I know we're trying to cut this show a little shorter today, but I don't know what Mickey Loomis was thinking. I don't, and then you give up a 3rd round pick. So what you get a 2nd round pick from Denver next year and give up your 3rd? What is that all about? That's almost a wash. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's a bad trade. I mean,
I can tell you what Mickey was thinking. I think with Mickey, he just wanted to wipe his hands clean of it and just get something.
That's possible.
He wasn't willing to wait until next year because he's worried he's going to get nothing. So I think he just wanted to, he got a 1st. Let's get it done and get it over with.
I think that's very possible, Spencer.
I think it's fair to say they could have gotten more. I don't really understand this is awful and the sky is falling. That's Derry Downer to me. I don't.
I'm not saying the sky is falling. This team sucks anyway. They're not, whether they make this trade or don't make this trade, they're not going to be any good anytime in the near future. So you want the sky is falling. That has nothing to do with this trade. But I mean, I think that we go through this, and I've said this multiple times. I don't think, and I didn't give it enough accountability. I don't think we realized how much Sean Payton actually meant to this football team. I like Mickey Loomis, and I think overall he's done a good job, but he's also been helped a lot by the fact that Sean Payton has pulled a lot more strings, I think, than any of us realize. And we're starting to realize it now. Sean Payton, and I mean, Sean Payton can't pull the string on himself. So, but I'm just saying, if you talk about if Drew Brees' contract was up, and we've seen it, Drew Brees was never going anywhere because Sean Payton was never going to let him go anywhere. And they were going to do what it took to keep him here. And whether I agreed with it at the time or didn't agree with it at the time, Sean Payton was pulling those strings. And now there's no one here to help pull strings. And you're talking about a mediocre franchise that's going in the wrong direction. And I hate to say this. I mean, you can hate to hear it all you want, but this team isn't getting any better anytime soon. They're just not in a position to do so.
The other point Jerry makes this week, now Nielsen moving on, he got a full-time defensive coordinator position in Atlanta. More surprising to me is that Chris Richard also got let go. So the Saints really don't have a defensive coordinator at this point. Dennis Allen, of course, is going to have his hands all over that defense either way, but they will need to fill that position. So lots to talk about. And this is not.
This is what Data is going to be mostly about tomorrow. I mean, I can tell you right now, we'll probably spend 3/4 or more of the show tomorrow morning with Jeff Duncan at 9:15 live here on all of these same stations talking about this. And Dunk was able to talk to Sean Payton right after. And Barry's comment, yep, Sean to Loomis, thanks, pal. There's no question that that's going to be the first topic that I bring up and his feeling on that. I mean, Sean's never going to say that, but so tomorrow morning we will be spending a lot of time, and it deserves a lot of time. But I think that fans are being a little bit optimistic on what the Saints are getting back, and just happy that they jumped back in the first round.
Look, so listen to Datitude tomorrow morning for more. I will say, and this is not meaning to praise the Saints because it's really not anything that they did, but the one's maybe saving grace here is that the rest of the NFC South is also in huge limbo. Tom Brady retires. The top quarterback left in Tampa Bay right now is Kyle Trask, because Blaine Gabbert's a free agent also. You have Sam Darnold in Carolina. You have Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota in Atlanta. Oh, yeah, Darnold's a free agent. So, I mean,
but those teams aren't going to stand pat, and they're in a different spot salary cap wise. And I'm hearing more and more grumblings about Lamar Jackson going to Atlanta. And if that happens, then Atlanta automatically becomes the favorite in the division. And Carolina's, I promise you, Frank Reich is not going to stand pat and let Sam Darnold be his quarterback. There's going to be, they're going to get some.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that those are going to be the quarterbacks come September 1st, but those are the quarterbacks right now. So all four teams are going to be in that market. Can one of them get Lamar Jackson? I highly doubt he's leaving Baltimore. Can one of them get Derek Carr? We know he's leaving Las Vegas. Carolina's got Jimmy G's out there. Carolina's got a top 10 pick. Will they take a quarterback? I mean, there's lots of possibilities. But right now, all four teams have a lot of work to do this offseason. So the Saints, and salary cap wise, the Saints are probably in the worst position of any of them.
Not probably.
But I would argue that certainly Atlanta and Carolina, and you could argue with Tampa Bay, that they have a stronger core roster than those teams do too. So if they can make a move, that division could be there for the taking.
As you look at it right now, I don't disagree. I'm just telling you that where the Saints aren't just in the worst cap spot in the NFC South. They might be the worst cap spot in the entire NFL. That's where they are right now. They keep kicking the can down the road, and you can't keep doing it. You have to go through. You have to go into the cocoon. You're just going to have to. You're going to have to eat it for a couple of years. And I know fans don't want that. They hate the thought of just eating it and going through a couple bad seasons. But this team's never going to get back to where they were in the early 2010s, 2009, 2010s through 2013 or 14, unless they go through that process. The Patriots were able to do it because they were smart about it. Belichick was just phenomenal at being able to collect draft picks and making those draft picks work and scouting the guys that could come in and be Tom Brady's guys. But the Saints aren't in that boat. They're not. They have to. I think they're in a position now to where they're going to have to just. I mean, next year, you're right. If things don't go the way that we hope they don't go for Atlanta and Carolina, I think Tampa Bay's a mess. I think they're going to be the worst team in the division.
They've also got a first place schedule, so there's that.
Yeah, they're a mess. So Tampa Bay, I think, if I had to say now, I can't see what Tampa Bay is going to be able to do to make themselves better. But Atlanta and Carolina, I think, are going to be a lot better next year. Especially Carolina. I think Frank Reich is a great fit for that organization. And I just can't imagine. You want to talk about Derek Carr going somewhere? I think Derek Carr could go to Carolina.
Well, that is the first question for me the Saints need to figure out. You figure out the quarterback. If you can get a Derek Carr in here somehow.
It changes things.
Then you don't want to go in that cocoon yet. Then you want to try to kick that can further down the road and see what you can do. But if you can't, and you're either starting Andy Dalton or bringing in a third-round rookie or both to try to build up, then maybe you do that for a couple years. So to me, the quarterback question is the next one to be answered, and we'll talk more about it. Jim's got Datitude tomorrow morning with Jeff Duncan. He'll have a lot on that. We'll have a new poll question for you next week as well, so look out for that on bet.NOLA.com. And our schedule next week, Monday at 4 o'clock, Bayou Bets. We'll have Devin Jackson on. Tuesday, 4 o'clock, Fantasy Roundup, digging into Super Bowl player props. And then our full Super Bowl preview this time next week, 4 o'clock on Thursday. Guys, anything else to say other than, which Tigers rule the roost here? I'm going the wrong way.
I'm going to take my glasses off so I can't see it.
Hey, I'll make sure to go check out the Bet.NOLA Instagram. We've been putting in a lot on that lately, getting that build up, getting a lot of content there, and polls, interactive, links to all our stories and stuff. And we're just getting started over there. So y'all go check it out now. Bet.NOLA on Instagram.
Absolutely. That's well said. And we thank everybody for joining us. Also go to the YouTube channel, the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel, get notifications anytime we go live, and feel free to tell your friends as well. So for Jim Derry and Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching Bayou Bets.